Hi Homeworthy, I'm Ann. Welcome to my home in Laguna Beach. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name is Ann Millang, and I'm a designer. I have a background in art history and landscape architecture, but I also built up a home furnishings business in Sweden and ran that for many years and continue to work with Swedish design. So that's my expertise, is bringing Swedish design into America and working as a designer with that aesthetic. So we're in Laguna Beach, California, and this house actually was the house that my parents lived in when I started college. So they moved here for work. My dad was an environmental engineer and my mom was a teacher. So they got relocated here, and it was right when I started college. So I was going to the Claremont colleges and studying art history. And so it was a place I would just come home to visit occasionally on the weekends. And then when I went up to UC Berkeley to study landscape architecture and did my graduate work there, I would come back. So it's a home that was really meant for empty nesters. It just had 2 bedrooms and this little living area. So it's a home that we have kind of changed now by adding a second story and bringing in a lot of more design ideas from our travels and our life living in Sweden. So it's a different house now, but it's still very much part of my parents' original legacy. So welcome to my dining area. This room is a little bit representative of what we did later, because we had Swedish Gustavian pieces that are the pieces that we were most well known for, this is actually an old Gustavian piece from Sweden that we shipped over from Stockholm. But we had a store in Santa Monica, and we brought in Belgian pieces and pieces from the south of France and European beach resorts. So this table is sort of set with those pieces. So this is a Belgian table. And then this is also Belgian china. And then I have my Swedish glasses from the company I work with, which was called Rainier. And they're a heritage glass company that has been making glass since the 1800s in the deep forest of Sweden, where they have lots of wood and they can put the fires to hand blow the glass. So this glass is a champagne glass. It's actually was for the royal family of Sweden, and they commissioned it. And then it became so popular that we continued to produce it for our, other customers. But the nice thing about these pieces are that we'll use these for everyday dinners as well. It's very elegant, but at the same time, you can feel the weight is quite heavy. So you can feel very comfortable using it. It's not something that feels precious or overly, that you have to be overly careful about. These pieces are also designed by the Swedish design company called Rainier, and this is called the Lina vase, which was designed by Thomas Sandell, and he's an architect in Sweden. The other thing that we really like to do in Sweden is not do like a formal arrangement. We'd rather go out into the meadow and pick wildflowers that kind of feel like you've just picked them out of a field. So I tried to do floral arrangements that are more that kind of feeling rather than something that's overly done. And that is very typical Swedish. The other thing we do is we always light candles. Even if it's just a regular school night, we always have candles lit. And that comes from my time living in Sweden. And these pieces are from the glass company, but also from a company I work with called Skultuna, which makes brass. And they've been making brass since the 1600s. So they also were purveyors to the royal family. So some of the pieces are very old, like this piece, it's called the Lily. And that piece was designed for the World Fair in 1939. So that's an older piece. These pieces are designed, they're called the Tulip, and they're designed by Pierre Forchel. And he was a quite well-known designer in the 1950s, working in Sweden, so he worked for Skultuna as well. So we always light candles in the evening. And then these are 2 lamps that my brother found, and I just love the natural shell feeling that it reminds us that we're close to the beach, and it gives such a nice quiet light in the evening. And the other fun thing is these little lobster napkin holders. I found these in a little store in Gothenburg in Sweden. We've used these for dinners where we have friends, but we've also taken them out to the islands in Sweden. We'll set up a picnic, and we like to gather with our friends and bring some fresh seafood and put these like formal napkins out on an island. That's kind of also very Swedish, to do something formal in an informal setting. So in the winter we bring this into our home. And these pieces are also from Skultuna, and they are actually just for putting hot plates on. But one of the things that I love about Swedish design is that there's always form and function. So, you know, everything that I have ever worked with in Sweden as far as design goes has been something that was beautifully designed, but it had a function. So this is just to put your hot pot on, but it's so beautiful. And the same goes for the other piece, which is also just meant to put a hot plate on. But it's also such a beautiful piece. It's almost like a piece of art in itself, the way it's designed. And that's a hallmark of Swedish design, is that they're very frugal about their use of things. You wouldn't design something just to make it beautiful. It has to have a function. And I think that's something that you see as we go through the house. So this rug is from Serena and Lily, and this rug as well. And we wanted to do something that had stripes, which is also a very Swedish kind of motif, but something in sisal that was super resistant to dogs and beach walks and sand. So, you know, those are the two pieces that we have here. And then we also have, in contrast to this beautiful original Swedish Gustavian piece, we have some of the pieces from our collection, the Belgian pieces that we brought over to our store. So this is a china cabinet that keeps all our Swedish glass and a lot of our English porcelain china that I love. So that kind of fits in with this look. And also I have thought it felt really nice with this sofa. This sofa was my grandmother's, and I actually sat on the sofa with her learning to needlepoint, and she taught me to sew. And so it had a very special place. She had it in her house in San Francisco. It had like a dull yellow faded fabric on it. So I found this kind of fun Ralph Lauren Saint-Tropez motif, and I kind of gave it new life. And I think it fits into this sort of Provençal, south of France feeling that we were trying to create in this living area. So these pieces are actually from my grandparents' house in New England, and they lived in Hingham, and they lived out on the Cape. And I mean, these are really like actually old irons that my grandmother actually used. So I love those. And they're chimney set. And I'm sure this was just an old copper bucket, and this was a bed warmer, I believe. So I think you warmed up your bed at night with this. But this came from their old house in New England, and I thought it fit nicely with the fireplace here, because this is actually from my store, from our Belgium company, and we had it as just a setup for our furnishings lines. And then I thought, well, that fits perfectly here when we redid the house. So we just brought it home from the store and put it in here. And then this was a mirror that we found at a secondhand store. And with the shells, it also reminds us of kind of our connection to the beach here. And we're always bringing shells home from trips where we travel, whether it would be, you know, we've been to the Bahamas or to Hawaii, and so you'll see shells all throughout the house. We're always gathering them and bringing them home. And when we redid the fireplace, when we redid the whole house, I found this nice hand-painted tile from Santa Barbara, and really it reminded me also of some of the hotels and places we had stayed in France. So I thought that was a nice addition too, and kind of connected with the pavers and the tiles here in the living area. So this house is very much a combination of the two styles that are my big influences, which are Sweden and Swedish design, and using lots of light and creating a serene and calm environment, and very much the the background of my grandparents from New England who lived in Cape Cod and Nantucket, and their furnishings and also design style. And if you think about Swedish design and New England style design, the beach interiors are very similar with the light colors and bringing light in and creating a very informal environment that you can sort of have beautiful dinners but also relax and feel like you can throw your shoes off after you've been at the beach. Okay, so now I'd like to take you out to the patio, and this is where we have our kind of dinners during the summer or al fresco lunches. We sit here quite often, and we have done kind of the same thing using some of the glass pieces from the Swedish company I work with to create a sort of green and pink sort of spring theme. These plates are designed by Thomas Sandell as well for Ramier glass, and they're very heavy, so they feel very sturdy. They're not light, like you would think that they would be very, very delicate, but they're not. And we added these little these would be used for a cordial or an aquavit type of drink in Sweden. They would have this at midsummer, which is the biggest celebration of the year. But you could also use them for like a little mini martini or a little ice cream, a little scoop of ice cream at the end of dinner. And then we've added these mambo glasses, which are also hand blown in this beautiful pink color, and the little bubble vases that we use for voitos. So we would light candles at night when we were out here. And then this is the Ebba vase, which is also made by Ramier. And it is a beautiful vase. It's one that was made, a different version of it for Svenskt Tenn, which is a beautiful store that I love in Stockholm. And we provide, this glass company makes special pieces for them. So there's a vase that's very similar to this there. But this one is made for us, especially in the American market. And we kind of do the same thing with doing very informal wildflowers, which is the way I like to set tables for any kind of dinner or lunch. And the tablecloth is actually inspired by a company that I love called DP and J. Baker. And they were two brothers who worked in England creating fabrics for fabric houses, but they traveled a lot in Asia. So this is the one that's called Magnolia. And Svenskt Tenn sells this pattern in the fabric as well, but I found this tablecloth and I thought it was a little nod to Svenskt Tenn and this sort of Asian influence, which I love to combine with the Swedish pieces. This carafe is also something that I think is just really beautifully designed. We just use it for water, but it's such an elegant way to serve water at the table. This is a place we sit quite often. Over here, we have just the informal place to sit. We could, put some wine and nice drinks in this bowl, which is also from Skultuna, made with the brass company that I was telling you about. So that's a beautiful way to serve drinks in the evening or have coffee after dinner. And then these pillows, they're from Serena and Lily. I think the surfboard that was used this morning. My son took it out and I asked him if he could bring it back because this is where it always hangs. And that's an old vintage surfboard, but it's kind of very reflective of our life here because we do have nice, elegant dinners, but people are always surfing in the morning and coming in with their bathing suits. And so we don't live a very formal life, but we like to set the table for dinner and kind of create a little celebration out of even just a regular dinner with friends. So I think that's kind of very reflective of our life, that we're all super active and at the same time we appreciate kind of the finer things in life. So now welcome to my kitchen. This is a kitchen that we actually designed in Sweden, and I worked with the owner of the company called Kvanum. kitchen. Elizabeth was the owner, and so we designed this together and shipped it over in a container and worked together with her to design the kind of little crisscross pattern here. And as you can see, a Swedish kitchen is very simple. It's usually very neutral, light and white, and we like it that way. We didn't want to have too much busyness going on, but we did want to have kind of a fun splash of color. So I have this vintage refrigerator that kind of is this beautiful blue that reminds us how close we are to the ocean here, because we're just this steps away from the ocean, and you can open the door and see it outside. So yeah, that was a fun thing to add, and kind of little blue accents, which is obviously, you can see, my favorite color. So we have those throughout the kitchen, and then your simple farmhouse sink and the brass details. I did a little piece kind of just to connect with the fireplace. So when I redid the tile here, I just put some tiles from the fireplace that kind of connected the fireplace to the kitchen. And then we have this old La Cornue stove, which is been something that we've used for years and we love, and it's a great way to cook with a gas stove. It's not very fancy as far as being able to gauge the temperatures and everything, but we've had lots of wonderful dinners with using this stove. This was a little unused nook that I really didn't know what to do with, and then I decided to create this little bench and put some pillows here and sort of be able to sit and have my coffee in the morning and look out at the ocean. But after our trip to Australia, I became very enamored with Anna Spiro, who is a wonderful Australian designer. So these fabrics are from Anna Spiro. So there's the tulips and that sort of pattern there, and then this one. And I just thought that they kind of fit nicely, and I like the little crisscross that matched the crisscross in the cabinetry. So, but tulips are a very Swedish thing, as you might have noticed with our tulip candle holders and the tulips on the fabric. So I thought it was fun. But she's an Australian designer, so I really love her work, and I wanted to bring that into our kitchen. Then we love to go to the farmer's market, so I was there yesterday and got all our persimmons and lemons, fresh raspberries. And we also are right next to our little kitchen garden outside, which I have fresh herbs growing in the garden out here that I can just go out and pick the herbs. This isn't the best time of year because we're in the fall, but come February we'll have lots of lemons and oranges and flowers out here. But this is a nice place to sit and watch the sunset from our garage roof. So we kind of repurposed the old garage and made it into something that we could actually use, because you can see the ocean from here. And so we'd love to sit out here and have a drink and watch the sunset. And that's called the Five Palms. It's a very famous kind of view, which is called the Five Palms. Laguna sunsets are absolutely stunning. So for us, we never get tired of them. I've lived here pretty much all my life, back and forth from Sweden, but I have never gotten tired of watching the sunsets out here. So it's absolutely beautiful. When we designed this house, it was very much about bringing back or creating a new home with all our kind of influences and also the experiences we've been through traveling and living abroad in Europe. But I have to say, maybe this room right here is the most meaning for me. It was a room that was just used sort of as a utility room, extra kind of den. And sadly, my brother passed away about 7 years ago, quite young. And I think design is all about how can you make a space have meaning beyond just the design. So, and he was someone who helped me a lot with my design business. He worked in my store, and he also was great at finding beautiful pieces in secondhand stores and the Goodwill. And you'll see those pieces throughout the house. But he had this old sofa behind me in the garage, and it was just sitting there gathering dust. And so after he passed, I brought it up and I said, let me give it new life, and sort of for him. And so I found these beautiful fabrics, and I repurposed the sofa and made these new cushions, and then I covered this ottoman with some fabric from the old CW Stockwell collection that took over the banana palm from Palm Beach. And we had just been on a trip to Byron Bay in Australia to visit close family friends after he died. And so I kind of brought home this feeling of an island retreat where he could sort of be with me and be with us, and I could kind of continue things on for him. So this room definitely has the most meaning and is a place that feels very serene for me. I always feel like I'm close to him when I'm here, and it reminds me of his sort of beautiful view of life, and seeing how you can make things out of an old Goodwill piece and give it a new place in the home. So welcome to the Palm Room. This is the room that I was telling you about that is a place that was kind of a utility room. My dad actually used it as just he was an engineer, so he just had really boring file cabinets in this room that were made of metal, and he was not very into design. So we wanted to kind of create a space that was more fun, and as I said, it was in memory of my brother. So this sofa that I found, I'm fairly sure is a Michael Taylor sofa, and he found it probably at one of the vintage shops that he frequented. And so I took this fabric and did a kind of fun little leopard print on it, and covered the sofa again. And then we took an old ottoman that I had that had been outside and sort of was faded, and put this wonderful banana palm fabric that's the old Beverly Hills fabric that C.W. Stockwell took over later from them. And then we have these little shell lamps that my brother John also found, and I thought they were so nice in the corner of the room there, looking out into the garden. The wallpaper's from Cole & Sons, and actually I did that while I was kind of going through the process of losing my brother, and it was sort of therapy for me to put this wallpaper up. So I did that shortly after he died, but it was also a therapeutic, positive thing for me to do. The lamp is from Aaron Lauder, but for another company, but I thought that the gold sort of palm leaves also fit into the room very nicely. And then on the wall here, we have one of your sort of 1950s sunburst mirrors, and I found that in Puglia in Italy, and it reminded me of my brother because he loved 1950s motifs. This is a painting of me I do some painting sometimes sort of as an extra hobby, and my teacher did this painting of me down at the beach in Laguna, so it's just a very informal, quick sketch. And then this guitar has a lot of meaning. My daughter's a singer-songwriter, so she sits often in this room and writes and composes pieces on that guitar as well as all the others she has in Sweden. But when she comes home, that's the one that she uses. So this room is a kind of a room where you can chill out and be creative. So the floors throughout the first floor of the house were actually original. So my parents had kind of in the 70s, you know, sort of there was a big move towards New Mexican style. So that was their style. And they had a fellow from Mexico lay these floors so you can see the little dog prints in some of the tiles. And when we renovated the house, we were doing sort of a New England Swedish style house, and we thought that really doesn't work. But as we started to furnish it with some of the pieces from Provence and Belgium, we thought this actually is very Provençal, so it looks nice, and it's also super practical because you can just sweep the sand out of this house and just take a big mop and mop it off. You don't have to be precious about it. So we kept the floors, and they're sort of a memory to my parents because most of the house was, well, we had to take down walls due to termites and things. So we wanted to keep something, and this is what was left. So this room is a guest room that used to be my parents' bedroom. So we sort of converted it, and when we did the renovation, we were able to push the house out a little tiny bit in the back, so we got a little larger room. So we've done the bedding on this bed is from actually a wonderful Swedish designer, Beata Heimann, who lives in London, and she produced this fabric this bedding for a company I work with called Milanotti. And the idea around this fabric was that it's inspired by the old English bisque chinaware of the 1800s. And then the little piping, the blue piping, is sort of the rim around the coffee or the teacup. So I thought it was very nice. And then Milanotti makes these accent pillows, and I think that we're by the beach and that we are kind of in a subtropical climate. It's nice to have some little pop of color with the pink. This bed was one of the beds that we made, the Swedish beds, and this was one of the first beds that we sold here in America to Neiman Marcus and Williams-Sonoma Home and many others. And we did the panel so that you could pop it out and cover it with fabric. So I just covered with the remnant that I had from China Seas. It's called Lyford K, because I had done the chair in that fabric, so it was nice to be able to kind of match that. But the nice thing about these panels is you can change them out at any time. So whenever I feel like doing a new look, I just change out the panel, which is nice. And this quilt is also made by Beate Heimann, and it's called the Durham quilt. And she also was inspired by the old quilts in England. And so that's an accent. And then we have this piece is an extra little comforter that I put at the end of the bed that is from a local designer called Lala in Laguna Beach. And she does wonderful Indian prints and is one of my favorite designers. Some of the little prints on the wall are prints that I found that in a vintage store, but they reminded me of my grandmother because she was a designer in the 1920s. So she did all the drawings for, let's say, department stores in Boston. And one was called Filene's, which was a famous department store. And so she would do these kind of drawings. So I found these and they reminded me of her. So it kind of gave a little feminine look. And this piece, it's an old bureau from my grandparents, and that came from Cape Cod and would have been typical of old New England homes. So I thought that felt very nice and fit into this place very nicely. In the bathroom, we took one of the pieces that we had in the store, because this is also a Belgium wash stand, and this is blue Belgium stone. So we brought that in because it looked like a very sort of beachy accessory, and we didn't want to have anything very fancy. So this is just very simple for this bathroom. And we did all Waterworks tiles and Waterworks hardware, and so we kind of kept it very simple with the ivory accents. So we have a few little things that were from places that we visited, but this is a photo of my grandparents' house out on Pocasset in Cape Cod. And it would have been around the early 1900s. The wonderful thing about this photo is that my great-grandmother would hand color these photographs that she took, which was really unique at that time. I think they were a very artistic family, and so they were always doing crafts and sewing and making clothes, and that was one of the things she did. But also this house was built by my great-grandfather, and our home in Sweden is actually very similar to this and has the exact same windows. And I hadn't seen these photos before we bought that house in Sweden when I was pregnant with my son. So it was a very strange thing to see these photos and see my great-grandfather's house, and that he had built this house that had the exact same pattern of the windows that are in our house in Sweden. So I thought there must be some sort of good karma around that. But also it's probably related to my roots, coming from New England and being attracted to that kind of look. So that picture has a lot of meaning for me. And I love to just put little flowers by the bedstands at night. I think that I do that even when it's just a regular guest coming. I think it's really important when guests stay that they have some fresh flowers in their room and a little glass of water to drink from. Yeah, and then this was a kind of a little piece that we designed for the Swedish collection. And I don't know, I can take this off, but it was kind of a smart design because we thought we would make a little nightstand that you could then take the tray off and have a breakfast tray for having your breakfast in bed. And we did this many years ago, but I still think it's quite a nice little design idea. So we still have this little nightstand from the original collection back in the 90s. And then we found this lamp in a vintage shop up in Cambria. And I like it because you can make it like a night light. I don't know if I can do it, but it lights up just inside at night. So that's kind of a nice little thing when people go to sleep. I have worked so much with design, so I've been really lucky to work with very high-end glass and beautiful heritage glass and Gustavian Swedish furniture. But sometimes the things that I think that are the most fun are like when you find an old IKEA curtain and you just add a little border and you just hang it up, and it's sort of that combination of having something very elegant with something that's very simple, and something that doesn't cost that much, that you can make it look more like it's been thought through. So you don't always have to use the most expensive fabrics, and certainly going and finding old pieces that you can reupholster. That's something that I love to do. Swedish design is, for me, it's very much about light, because in Sweden we don't have that much light. So we have a summer home where we go back to and where we actually raised our children. My husband is Swedish, Bjorn, and we raised our children, Jonathan and Julia, there. And I was always searching for light in that house. It's an old house from the 1860s. And so you don't want to cover windows up, you want to bring light in. And this house, actually, we were very, very lucky to have my Swedish father-in-law was an architect, and he was retired. And so he helped us to design the addition to this house, the second story, which was really wonderful for us because he brought the Swedish aesthetic into this house, which he sort of created this open stairwell that let the light come in. And he was looking, and it was a crazy story because he hadn't been here, so I just did the plan drawings and sent him photos. And so he designed this house sight unseen, but he could see by the views of the sea where the light should come in. So I think that's the most important thing in Swedish design is light. And you'll see as we go through the house that the Swedish pieces are often painted in a very light blue-gray or cream white, and that's because it's always important for them to reflect the light in their pieces to create more sense of space. The other thing is that they often, you see space under pieces. You don't have big chunky furniture. You have quite elegant pieces with a lot of air running throughout them. So that's a little kind of the opposite of the American aesthetic, I would say. Yeah, so, and then very much focus on the heritage and handmade products that are done in a way that's been done for tradition, for generations. And you'll see a lot of those pieces as we go through the house too. So now I'll take you upstairs and show you the rest of the home. So this painting is of my grandmother, Elizabeth, and it actually looks quite formal, but it was just done for her school project when she was in art school. And it was a friend of hers that painted it, a guy that she went to school with. And my grandfather, she always told my grandfather that he was in love with her, and that he was he really wanted to be with her, so kind of keep my grandfather on his toes. But he was actually gay, so. She kept that story with her till her grave, I think, to keep my grandfather in the right direction. But he always loved this painting, and they had it in San Francisco. So I kind of always keep it here as a memory of her, but also that story of how, she. Something that was so simple as an art project became such an important part of their lives, and kept my grandfather loyal to her. So welcome to the upstairs living space where we can see the ocean from here. This is the second story that we built, and was the part of the renovation that we did. And at the top of the stairs is this beautiful old Hawaiian chest, and this chest was my grandparents'. My grandfather was a lieutenant colonel in the Army, and he was stationed many places, but they were stationed in Honolulu in the 1930s. So they bought this chest, and that chest traveled with them all over the country because they were repositioned, every few years. So they went to Virginia and New England, and then finally out to San Francisco. But this was something that held all their prized possessions, so they just traveled everywhere with it. And so it kind of landed here, and I like that we have this here because whenever I look out at the ocean, I think, Hawaii is the next place, and we're very connected to it because my cousins still live there. So this is a beautiful piece that I love. And this painting was something my brother actually found, and he was a painter that painted, I believe, in the 1920s, but again, something that he found in a little Goodwill store. And I found out later that this painter was actually fairly well known. So it's just, I thought it fit beautifully over this chest here with the ocean motif that is so much a part of our life. And then this is our kind of informal living space. This is where we just sit and hang out in the evenings and watch TV. We might have a drink and look out at the ocean. And these pieces are actually very typical of what my grandmother had and what I have here and in Sweden, which is just some, these are actually old Ralph Lauren sofas, but they've been so faded and used over the years that I just did simple slip covers, and I kind of edged them in blue piping, and I can throw those in the wash. So if the dog jumps on there, or the kids, or my kids are in their 30s, but they still spill things all over the place, I can just put some spot remover on there and throw it in the wash, because I don't want to feel like I have a sofa that is too precious, especially in an area like this where we're having informal evenings and gatherings. And then this piece is one of the pieces that we brought back from Belgium, and was part of our collection in Santa Monica in our showroom. It's a beautiful it was actually designed by the three brothers who started the company called Flamant. Their father was an antique dealer, so he was really good at reproducing pieces, but quite authentically. So this came from an old lawyer's office. So that was originally the design from a lawyer's office. And so that's why they had the ladder so you could go up and take books out. So, and then they have these nice pull out little trays. So this would be where they would work with all their files and everything. But we use these just to put drinks on, or a book or something, when we're relaxing here. And then we've just filled it with books, things that we love. This is a basket from Nantucket, because my grandparents came from Nantucket. There's pictures of my children, and shells that we've gathered, books that we love. This is my daughter's a singer-songwriter, so this is her album cover. And that's her out in the Swedish archipelago, and that was her first album that was called Everly for Everly. And so we have things that have meaning to us, photos of the family, and then more of the pieces from Sweden. I think the pink vase is really beautiful because it reminds me of these shells that we've gathered, that are very beachy colors. People that I love, India Hicks, who's one of my favorite designers, and so everything. This is places that we've traveled, or we've not stayed at, but we've maybe been able to see, like the Hotel Eden Rock. So these are books that I love to look through at night and sort of remind myself of all the beautiful places that you can travel. And then we have board games, because we like to play board games when we can, when we're not too busy. We try to take some time off and play board games at night. And then this is this was actually a find from a vintage store. It's an old Ralph Lauren table, but what I like about it is so sturdy, because you could throw red wine on here, coffee, you just wipe it off. So it's very sturdy. So when we're alone, like my husband and I, when we're just having dinner, watching Netflix, we'll just sit here and eat because it actually works as a kind of a low dining table. And then this will light a candle. This is another one of the pieces by Pierre Forchel for Skutuna. So he was the one that designed in the 1950s, and I love that piece. I think it's very classic. It reminds me of being in Palm Springs or something in the desert. So yeah, he was a great designer. And then we have also, this is a piece that's also from Belgium. It was a sideboard that we brought back with us, and it's seen its days of wear. I used to sand this down every year and refinish it, and then I realized that part of kind of European living is one thing that I notice when I sell furniture in America. The Americans always wanted to have everything very clean and perfect, and I would always say, but you know, in Europe we let the rings from the wine glasses remain because it reminds us of the dinners we've had. So I stopped sanding this down, and I've left all the wine rings and let it be sort of what it is, because it is a home that's lived in, and that is definitely more European. But I would always try to make it look more American, but I thought, no, let's just let it be and have its life. Oh, and then these right here, these have a lot of meaning for me. These are photographs of my grandmother and my great-grandmother. So she was the one that took those photographs. And that was out on the Cape in probably the turn of the century, like early 1900s. And these were sailboats. My dad learned to sail from his grandfather, who was her husband. And so he was a big sailor, so he used to sail out here in Dana Point all the time because he had learned to sail back in New England. So we have a lot of New England influences, and this is my grandmother, the one in the painting with her little sister on the beach. I think it looks very beautiful. And this is her. She was very stylish. They didn't have a lot of money, but she and my grandfather always looked like they were out of a Great Gatsby film. But she designed and made all her own clothes. So she had learned to sew in a French couture shop. So she taught me how to sew. And even the wedding dress that I had when I got married was a dress that she had made. So, and it was very 1920s style. So she was always able to put things together. And my grandfather also had these nice suits and shoes, but they were just very stylish. But they didn't have, they weren't wealthy people, but they were very stylish. So I learned a lot from my grandmother about how you can make a penny stretch and still have style. So this desk is also a piece from our collections. It was a sea captain's, sort of a sea captain's desk that we did for the Belgium collection. And I think it's really a beautiful place to sit and work. You see the ocean out here. It's just like you can't have a better office. And then I combined it with this old chair that my grandmother had. And that also had a kind of a dull, I can't remember, but some kind of dull fabric on it. And it had faded over the years, so I found this kind of fun palm frond fabric from China Seas and reupholstered that, so I gave it a little new life. And then, we have pictures of my parents here on the beach, and my children, and my husband and myself. And I love this book. I Married Adventure by Åsa Johnson. That is just a really classic book about travel, and by a Swede. And then this lampshade, I put it together with this lamp foot that my brother found. And this is from Svenskt Tenn, which is one of my favorite stores in Sweden. And I've worked with their fabrics. And Joseph Frank was the fabric maker there, and he's becoming quite popular here in America now. They've sort of started to discover him. But he was designing in the 1940s, and he did very bold and vibrant patterns that seemed sort of modern. They didn't seem like they were from the 1940s, so they've become very popular now. And this is one of the prints that he did, and it was actually a sort of to honor Estrid Eriksson, who was the founder of Svenskt Tenn. Her husband was a sea captain for the Swedish-American line, so that would bring the Swedes from America back to back and forth between Sweden and America. And what I thought was so fun about this is that, you know, it shows all the places that he traveled when he was a sea captain, you know, for the United States of America. But then he has the Mayflower, and I found out later at my grandfather's funeral that 3 of my ancestors came on the Mayflower. So they came from Plymouth, England, to Cape Cod in the 1600s. So I thought that was such a nice sort of little keepsake to have here that is from Sweden, that connects America and Sweden, and even, you know, has this little story about my family who came from over on the Mayflower. So it sort of comes full circle with my connection between Sweden and America, and how we all, even though we're all sort of different cultures, how we can connect in different ways. So that has special meaning to me. And then this piece is also from my grandparents, and it was from the Civil War. And my grandmother always told me that it came from the Civil War, so I don't know much about it, but you can see it's very scratched up. And she had it in their den, and she would always have all their books, and she and my grandfather would always have their tea on this old bench. So it's very, very sort of scuffed up, but I like it because it has such history, and that it's been traveling all over the American United States and ended up here in our little house in Laguna here. This piece is a Gustavian piece that we designed for the collection, and it's a piece that we don't sell anymore, but I kept it, and we've used it a lot because what I was talking about earlier with form and function, Swedes never design anything that can't be also used for something. So we designed this so that you could take all the pillows off, and we have an 8-way tie system under here. So this can be used as a single bed. And that's very typical in Sweden. If you go to a Swedish home, you'll always see sort of a Gustavian sofa like this, that even in the kitchen, they might have the sofa in the kitchen, but somebody will stay over on that sofa that had a few too many drinks. So it's really good to be able to, and it's very comfortable. It really, you know, you can sleep very well on this. So so I covered it with like Cotton and Tout fabrics, and then I found these upholstered pieces up in a store in San Francisco on Sacramento Street, and I thought that they fit really nicely with that piece. So we sit here by the fire when it's cold, which isn't that often, but in California it can get cold at night, and so we'll cozy by the fire here. And then this is another little area. I think my husband forgot to hang up a painting that I did, but it's there. But and then I just like a little backless sofa like this that, you know, is just sort of a little lounge place where you can also sit and read a book. And then these pillows are also by that lovely company that I like called GP&J Baker, and this is called the bird hydrangea pattern, and that's something that you'll see. It's come back. It's from the 1800s, but it's been very popular in Sweden these recent years. So it's something I brought, and then I just did these little blue velvet pillows to kind of connect with the lampshades, and then I like a table with just books and memories of places that we've traveled, or books about hotels and European hotels that we've traveled to, because I'd say that's one of my biggest inspirations is hotels. My husband is always getting after me because I won't always stay in them, but I might like try to stay one night at a nice hotel in Italy or France if I've read about it and I know the design is really beautiful, because I always bring back some inspiration from hotels that we stay at. So I've dragged him around to a lot of European boutique hotels, but I always say, okay, we'll do a compromise and do an Airbnb for the week, but one night at the nice little boutique hotel, and then I get my inspiration and I try to bring it home. So that's, yeah, and this is, and then this space in here, we kind of left it empty, and it's quite small, but we left it empty because we weren't quite sure what we were going to do with it, but we put a water line here, so we knew we'd have a sink. And then we met a Swedish friend who did carpentry for boat boat interiors. So we said that's perfect because he would be able to take this little tiny space. So he was able to take this little space and make a beautiful bar, and he put little brass details like this that you would see on a boat. And then he was able to even put in the exact size for wine bottles, and the shelves here with the wine bottles, so exactly the size that you needed for those. And then we've added all our kind of vintage glass. And then this mirror actually was also my grandparents from New England, and I thought it kind of fit very beautifully here because it kind of reflects the sea and what we see in the ocean, and it feels like it would be on a ship. So it feels nice. And then we can sit here and you can see over into the house, which is nice. So you can see down to the dining room. So if you're up here making drinks, you can look down and see that everybody's having a nice dinner there and mix the drinks up here. So it's for a tiny space, it's provided a lot of fun for us. We like it very much. The other thing is that this little tray was from my grandparents as well. So I'm sure that that is probably from the 1800s or earlier. So we like to bring those things. This is kind of a cool little tray that, to me, it's kind of a mid-century tray, but I think it's also another find from a secondhand store. I think we try to use as many things as we can from things that we've found and can repurpose rather than going out and buying new things from a store. I think if I can reupholster something, I will, and if I can reuse a tray, I will, rather than go buy a new tray. So in general. So one of the things I love to do, because I live in such a beautiful place, is try to get out and paint when I can. I work a lot, so I don't have time, but at least once a week I try to get out and paint with a group of friends. And so these paintings are from little local scenes from around here. This is down from the keel right down below our house. And that piece is from Divers Cove, which is up in North Laguna. And I really find that time being out and painting and looking at the colors here is sort of a necessary little break from all the administrative work that I do every day. And it always gives me a little burst of energy to be out there and seeing how beautiful it really is, because we don't take the time to stop in our lives and savor the moment sometimes when we get kind of focused on work. So this is it sort of forces me to get out there and do that. So I bring these home every week and hang them on the walls. So this is our primary bedroom, and it's up on the second story here, so we have views out to the ocean, which is really lovely. This piece is a piece from my grandparents that was brought back from New England, and has that kind of captain style look to it in the mahogany that I think is just very fitting with this room. And we have some photos here that are special to us. This is our wedding photo. We were married on my husband's farm in Sweden. And so we have a photo from that, and then photos of our children and us on different beach trips. And this is my husband when he was little. And then this is also an unknown painter, but I just loved it. And it's also a vintage find. And so we've combined these heritage pieces or heirloom pieces from my grandparents with pieces that we produce. And this is an island bed that we did for our showroom store back when we had that in Santa Monica. And this always kind of reminds me of being in a place like the Bahamas. And I like to find old prints from books and frame them. So these are some tropical plants that kind of fit in with that island theme. And I've done the bedding is also from Beata Heimann, the designer in Sweden, or she works in London, but she's from Sweden. But she was inspired by the Chinazuri ceramic ware or porcelain ware from England. And so that's how this pattern was kind of developed, and I thought it fit nicely with what we're doing, because we've always had these traditional pieces like the Swedish Gustavian pieces, and that's the same era. So this piece is one that we produced ourselves, and that is from the same era as the bedding was inspired by, you know, even though they were inspired by china plates of that era. This Gustavian bureau is also inspired by the design of the 18th century. And I've combined that with some beautiful Christopher Spitzmiller lamps that are also vintage, that we found and are in the duck egg blue that I love, and I think fits so nicely into a beach room, as well as the paintings that we have here. This is probably up somewhere in Big Sur, which is a place that we love to visit. And then this little sketch is from the south of France, also found in a vintage store. And then I like to always have flowers in every room, so I found this little vase, which is also in the same duck egg finish as the Christopher Spitzmiller lamps. And then the quilt that we have on here is also by Beate Heimann, and that's the Durham quilt, but it's in the whipped cream kind of color, but I think that it fits very well here at the beach. And then, you know, the thing that I was talking about doing something simple. So these are just the IKEA curtains, and I've always thought about doing very formal curtains in this bedroom, but I thought that's really not us. So I found these curtains at IKEA. They just have the little loops that, you know, you would remind you of being on a ship. And then I found some Ralph Lauren trim, and I just sewed it on. So for me, this is simple. You can just throw them in the wash. You know, someday I may have some really formal curtains here, but I don't think that I actually will, because it fits our lifestyle. It's more just being more informal. This little piece is from Serena and Lily on the floor. And then this is one of the pieces that we design as well. So it's a nice sort of bed, at the end of the bed, to have a nice little ottoman. I think it's always nice to be able to throw your clothes on at the end of the day, and the dog can jump up onto the bed from there. So that's practical. And then most of the lighting in the house, because I worked so many years in High Point when I was running my furniture company, and we had a factory there as well. I worked a lot with visual comfort, so we had our showroom right next to theirs, and so I would always be able to pick up nice lamps. So almost all the lighting in the house is from Visual Comfort, because we work so closely together. And then this little piece is another piece that was my grandmother's, and also came from New England, and I love the little inlay here, but it's very it kind of goes well with the island bed and the bureau that we have here. And then, you know, I do the same thing. I find the old shell prints in old Curioso books, and then you can just take them out and frame them, and you've made a nice piece of art. So we don't spend, we're not people that spend a lot of money on buying, you know, really expensive art, because we try to find things that just speak to us. So I don't really, for me, it's not important that it's a well-known artist. It's just that it speaks to you and gives you happiness and makes you feel a little sense of joy, rather than somebody that is well-known painted it. The home, to me, is definitely not living in a catalog. For me, our home, and our home in Sweden as well, is a place where we constantly have dinners and gatherings with friends and our children and their friends and their partners, and even our colleagues. And so home is a place that you can create an environment where people come and they feel very much like they can relax and be themselves. And you know, for us, it is not unusual to set the table really beautifully, because we have all these beautiful Swedish pieces that we can use, but we use them in a very informal way. even though we set the table elegantly. So I think a home is just a place where you really use it, and I like to have people running in from the beach. We're only a few minutes from the beach here, and so we're very active, and we all paddleboard and surf, and so it's a place where you can come with your sandy feet and just sweep it out and not worry about it. You want the sofas are meant for dogs to jump on and for people to relax. So it's not a place that is set up for just living in a cookie cutter kind of box, for me anyway.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.